hand glove. Screaming peace, joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. United we stand in love's pure mind. Watching the world in love. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure mind.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World News at Noon. We have some shocking news today, so I want to start off a little differently today. I want to tell you the news that I'm about to share is not coming from Watching the World. I'm simply reporting to you what's in the news. It's very important to know that. In fact, the news that we're about to look at comes by way of Yahoo, and it comes through the Daily Beast. So we have to make that very clear. I do not want you to walk away saying, well, Watching the World. I want you to understand the channel that this news is coming through. It also solidifies something that a lot of people think is true in regards to Donald Trump and Epstein, but you have to accept this for what it's worth. I'm not giving you my spin. I'm just telling you what's in the news. So here we have it, folks. Epstein's brother, Wild Trump FBI tip revealed. So this is what he had reported about his own brother to the FBI. And notice what it says. The brother of sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein claimed to the FBI that Epstein was killed or unalive, I should say, in his jail cell because he was about to name names and alleged that President Donald Trump authorized the murder. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is the breaking news that's out. And also, it goes to break down how Jeffrey Epstein was unalive in his jail cell. Okay, he says, I have reason to believe he was unalive. I'm using a different word here instead of the K word because he was about to name names. This is Epstein's brother. Now, this is the email. I'm going to post it on the community wall so you can take a look at the facts for yourself and come to your own conclusion. But it's very clear that he had a concern that because his brother was going to speak out, this is why he was unalive. Now, at this particular time, Donald Trump was the president of the United States. Let's be clear about that. Now, we can't substantiate this 100%. I'm just telling you this is the breaking news that has come out. Now, here are a few photos that you could find in regards to the Epstein files. Now, he was on suicide watch, no doubt about it, right? And from what my research tells me, when you are in those circumstances, they only allow you limited sheets and pillowcases and so forth. So how in the world would all of this be in Epstein's room? If it is true, that would be quite concerning. Like, how did he obtain so much stuff? So you start looking at all the factors here. His roommate was moved outside, camera outside of his cell was not working. You had two correctional officers that were asleep, right, during this crucial moment. One of those individuals allowed Epstein to make a call, which was against protocol. Like, how do you get all of these coincidences happening at the same damn time? Here's a photo of Donald Trump and Epstein together. And this is a photo of Epstein. So anyway, this is coming out from Yahoo News. I just want to be clear about that. But I also like to give you both sides of the story. So with all of this in mind, Todd Blanche, who is the key personnel of Donald Trump's administration, he has come forward with a statement. I'm just going to breeze through it so we can get to the news of the day. But Todd Blanche actually says there has been lots of sensational and even outright lies these past few days about the Epstein files. But let's separate fact from fiction. Document production is just that. We produce documents, and sometimes this can result in releasing fake or false documents because they simply are in the possession because the law requires this. Case in point, the so-called Epstein-Nasser letter is clearly fake, wrong handwriting, wrong return address, and postmarked 3 days after Epstein died. Fake videos of Epstein in his cell, photos with no explanation, sensational tales and lies by random people. These are not reality. We will continue to produce every document required by law. Let's not let the internet rumor engines outrun the facts. Okay, so this is the official statement in regards to all of this breaking news, but it does not take away. The thought is still on the table that Epstein brother came forward expressing his concern that Donald Trump authorized his unaliving of his brother. So that's what's breaking through Yahoo News today. Let's get to a few of the comments here. We have Deborah. Deborah says, hello to everyone. Shout out to you, Deborah. Deborah had the 42-year anniversary, her and William, yesterday. You guys are on cloud nine. Shout out to you. Lordo says, they say he did a backflip. How did... Okay, that was insane. And Stella says, double tap the screen and press the thumbs up. All right, so there you have it in regards to breaking news in regards to Epstein files. As you know, this information is still dripping out each day, and we're trying to cover it as much as possible. Now we're going to look at another facet of this whole conversation with Donald Trump, and we wonder why Marjorie Taylor Greene is walking away from just about everything political. Like, what's really going on with her and Donald Trump? Let's get to it.
Resigns from office. She's making new allegations in her fallout.
Let's take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for the support.
With President Trump over the Epstein files. In a New York Times interview, Greene says Trump privately told her, quote, my friends will get hurt if alleged abusers connected to Epstein were exposed. In a statement, the White House says, quote, Congresswoman Greene is
Now, that's rather shocking, too. We're getting it back to back today, right? These strong accusations allegedly coming from Marjorie Taylor Greene that Donald Trump is saying, hey, listen, if these Epstein files come out, my friends could get hurt. Like, what does that mean?
quitting on her constituents in the middle of her term and abandoning the consequential fight we're in. We don't have time for her petty bitterness. So for more on all this, I want to bring in our Capitol Hill correspondent, Jay O'Brien. And Jay, this New York Times piece, it's pretty meaty, 18 pages here. But what are we learning more on this this alleged conversation between the president?
Okay, guys, Mark Luddy says more weak BS from the quitter Greene. Okay, they're calling her the quitter. Thank you, Mark.
And the Congresswoman.
So this is a phone call, Alex, that Marjorie Taylor Greene has talked about before. It comes when Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of that handful of House Republicans who were defying President Trump. And
you guys remember, she came out strong. You wouldn't even see a photo of Donald Trump without seeing Marjorie Greene, right? In fact, Democrats would often cringe just to see her because she loved Donald Trump beyond compare. And to see her walk away disgruntled with Donald Trump makes you wonder, like, what's really going on and what's coming down the pipeline.
Signing on to legislation to force the release of the so-called Jeffrey Epstein files the Department of Justice has. This is legislation that ultimately passed, remember, the House and the Senate. And after President Trump first opposed it, he ultimately signed it into law. But in the initial stages of that effort, when Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of just those handful of Republicans stepping to the president on this issue, that's when this phone call, Greene says, took place. And
okay, now Doug is backing up a thought that I had this morning. Thank you, Doug. Doug says because now she's in the Democrats' pocket. I wonder if she was switching over to the Democrats. You feel the same way I do. Cheese Crust says she realized she was the problem. Okay, Critical 509 says, I think she was a plant put there in order to sow the seeds of dissent. A lot of Democrats feel the same way about Elon Musk as well. Scraggly says no 2026 for Alzheimer's Cheeto Daddy. Okay, very good. Let's get back to it, guys.
As you say, she goes into more detail in this interview in the Times about it, and she says that in her recollection, President Trump said to her that one of the reasons for his opposition to the release of these Epstein files was that his quote-unquote friends could get hurt. Now, that is only Greene's recollection. We haven't heard from the president one.
Oh wow. Cindy says she's having a love child. She had an affair on her husband. Oh my. Not I can't confirm that, but thank you for the comment, Cindy.
One way or the other on this, and it's been clear that Greene and the president have had a very serious falling out because of her support of the release of these Epstein files. And so, putting aside the details of this call for a second, it is just another fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump have had this very public breakup over this issue that at one point was critical to President Trump's MAGA base, was a campaign promise of President Trump's to put out whatever they could about the Jeffrey Epstein case, Alex.
Yeah, well, and she, by her recollection, talks about him yelling at her via speakerphone over this. But I'm curious. I mean, what are you hearing on Capitol Hill about this interview?
It's not necessarily the Epstein stuff that is really taking center stage with Republicans I talked to, not necessarily about this piece, but about the broader Trump-Greene breakup. Really what the Republicans I've talked to take issue with is Marjorie Taylor Greene's concerns that President Trump has abandoned what she says is his MAGA base. That's been something she's been saying for the last few weeks now. It's been her view that President Trump abandoned the...
Okay, guys, Deborah says she threw support behind him and he's not being nice. Tell him about it, Deborah. Thank you so much. Give a shout out to William. Tell him he's the husband of the year, 42 years. Critical 509 says, because remember, the Democrats will literally do anything to try to tarnish the Trump presidency. Okay, very good. Cheese Crest says pocket. Okay, very good. Cheese Crest says, what's a Democrat's pocket? All right, let's get to it.
Promises he made when he ran for re-election in 2024 has left, she says, that base of voters behind that talked about affordability, that talked about transparency when it comes to the Epstein files, and a number of other promises that President Trump made. And it's her view that President Trump has distanced himself from those voters in the pursuit of other things. Now, the Republicans I talked to on Capitol Hill largely take issue with Greene's characterization there, but they are concerned that Marjorie Taylor...
So for the most part, we get the point when it comes to this whole saga. But Donald Trump today has two big issues being thrown at him. What do you guys feel about it, though? It's quite interesting, I must say, especially with Epstein's brother saying that Donald Trump authorized the unalivement of Epstein, right? That's a very strong claim, right? But now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about what's happening in Minnesota when it comes to the fraud that's everybody's talking about it. Pretty much everywhere you go, you see on the news, you open up your computer, you see on the headlines talking about what's happening with the Somalians. Well, today we're going to look at it, but we're going to look at it from two different perspectives, not just one. I'm going to show you how ICE has been sent out to clear these individuals out, basically, right? You're probably going to see a lot of them getting deported, but I'm also going to show you how local individuals are pushing back and showing that, wait a minute, you have basically a rim shot type of reporting going on with Nick Shirley just showing up, giving his side of his story. But now we want to show you the facts, and they're trying to say that his reporting was dishonest. So I'm going to show you all about that. Let's get to it.
ICE is now on the ground in Minneapolis, conducting a massive investigation into child care and other widespread fraud as DHS and the FBI ramp up a statewide crackdown. Federal prosecutors say that the total fraud in Minnesota could ultimately be more than $9 billion. ICE Director Todd.
Where did that $9 billion go? A lot of people are saying that it went overseas to back up these very bad groups. I won't say exactly. You get the picture. But what do you guys think? Do you think that this is really true?
Lyons joins us now. Mr. Director, thanks so much for joining the program. I want to bring your attention to this. This is a stat that we got from the Attorney General. Now,
guys, take a moment. Stella says double tap the screen and press the thumbs up. Yes, hit the like button very much at the top of your screen. Thank you.
88 individuals were charged. 85 of those charged are of Somali descent. And we know that some of this money was going to terrorism.
So that's a correction right there. I want you guys to pay attention. When Nick Shirley went out, everybody tried to make it seem like this is the first time it's being reported on. And how did the government not know? But obviously, they knew about it because 89 people had already been prosecuted. Okay, we're going to get to how it's not just Somalians involved in this situation. I'm telling you, if you stick around today, you're going to see a different side of the story.
And of course, criminal activity. What can you tell us about what you're learning on the ground there?
Hey, Lawrence, good seeing you. Yeah, so ICE has been on the ground in Minnesota for a while now looking at these fraud claims. And one thing now the Homeland Security Investigation Special Agents are looking into is just that you said, that money trail of where this money is going to foreign aid. Obviously looking at any type of links to any criminal activity, obviously terrorism activity. And one thing you will see is that ICE is actually out there going with criminal warrants to conduct these investigations. So all too often you hear that ICE is just out there terrorizing the community or conducting administrative work. We've been on the ground in Minnesota conducting criminal investigations, and Homeland Security investigations has gone door to door to a lot of these suspected fraud sites all over St. Paul and Minnesota, and we're learning a lot.
Mr. Director, this is what the governor is saying in response to this in a statement. The governor has worked for years to crack down on.
Okay, Critical 59 says, remember, only liars say that Trump made campaign promises about the Epstein files. He was harassed about them during his campaign. Thank you very much. Skip says, Trump lost 2020. Stinky Butt says, Trump won. Cry for me. Okay, thank you guys for the support in the comments.
Fraud and asked the state legislator for more authority to take aggressive action. He has strengthened oversight, Governor Tim Walz, spokesperson. But they hadn't been aggressive, and it wasn't until your leadership, as well as the president's leadership, that you guys start serving these criminal warrants. So who dropped the ball here?
Lawrence, what we're seeing is there's always a tie when it comes to sanctuary jurisdictions where you can hide in plain sight.
No, that's not accurate either, because some of this started during Joe Biden's administration.
You see a lot of these fraudsters use a lot of the sanctuary rules and sanctuary protections to, enact in criminal fraud just like this. Secretary Noem has had us up in Minnesota. We had Operation Twin Shields with the FBI, CIS, and Homeland Security investigations. We were in September and November. We've been on the ground for so long looking into these states that are conducting these type of material fraud. And when Homeland Security investigations goes into these businesses, there is criminal activity when it comes to labor trafficking, child trafficking, human exploitation. And that's what we're looking at up there in Minnesota. And you always come back to these sanctuary jurisdictions where you'll find them, like, again, hiding in plain sight and using those sanctuary protections to employ, not only illegal aliens, but conduct criminal fraud just like you're seeing right now.
It's unbelievable. I want to get your reaction to this, Mr. Director. This is the mayor of Los Angeles, and this is what she had to say about Latino border agents. Let's listen.
Well, in a way, I think it's sad. I think that those Border Patrol agents are going to have a difficult time when they're out in the field and they see what actually happens in real life, separate from their training. But I do understand that their primary incentive is financial.
What's your response to that, Mr. Director?
Those are just sad comments. The men and women of ICE are all from all nationalities. We have so many that are first-generation Americans that just want to serve their country, and they want to be federal law enforcement officers. And it's really bad to politicize.
It seems like everything that we're learning in the news these days it's being screened through this lens about race, and everything is racially charged and motivated. We really need to cool that down.
Law enforcement in any aspect, but to take cheap shots at the men and women who put their lives on the line every day to go out there and serve.
Okay, Chris says Democrats need a prison sentence. Okay, Joe says the money went to Israel, free health care. Wow.
The nation to make their community safe. And it's just not a time and place for any type of elected officials to use, the fact of a racial profiling in reverse, targeting the men and women of law enforcement.
Yeah, it's pretty insane, especially when you consider that the border.
Okay, so Greg says that Nick just opened his channel to the fraud. Okay, we're going to actually get a chance now to look at an interview where CNN were able to interview Nick Shirley about this whole incident. Let's see what it's all about.
Administration says it is now withholding all federal child care funding to the entire state. The agency says the state receives $185 million for 19,000 children.
Okay, Patty says she saw the daycare center fraud video for herself. All right, thank you. Greg says much of the money goes to personal wealth and cash to Somalia. All right, thank you for that.
And now that money will be gone. And the agency did not specify any alternate plans for families who will be affected. DHS and the FBI said they were surging
Peace to you, Uncommon Woman. Thank you so much.
resources to Minnesota to investigate what they called suspected fraud sites. This all comes in response to a viral video posted by a MAGA content creator. He claims that he uncovered widespread fraud by Somali-run child care centers in the state. CNN is looking into those claims and has not independently verified the accusations. But the Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services is taking the allegations at face value. Take a listen.
Intrepid journalists have made shocking and credible allegations of extensive fraud in Minnesota's child care programs. We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade. Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment.
However, the so-called evidence comes from a man
Sounds like it's a little too late, but I guess it'll work for now.
who has posted anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant content in the past. CNN's Whitney Wild speaks to the man behind that video and takes a look at his claims.
We're from CNN. Can we talk to you? This is MAGA YouTuber Nick Shirley. Back at a daycare in Minnesota, he alleged was a fraudulent facility in a now viral video.
People are going to say this to the left or right.
And for those of you who are just coming in, I typically explain that I actually met Nick Shirley here in New York when he was covering the fraud in Chinatown. And from his video, I believe the Fed swooped in. And this is my opinion. This is the reason why they came after a lot of the Africans selling the knockoff Louis Vuitton bags, Gucci bags. In fact, sometimes you'll see individuals come from around the world trying to find out where they could buy these bags at. So at any rate, he was punched in the face. I saw it for myself. So this is very dangerous what he's doing, but he's doing it to try to reveal some of the fraud to his MAGA base.
Right issue, but no, fraud is fraud. And so I'm not out here trying to put a twist on things.
Shirley's viral video, released over the weekend, in which he says he's uncovering tens of millions of dollars in fraud at Minneapolis daycares run by the Somali community, was retweeted by Elon Musk and Vice President J.D. Vance. In the video, Shirley tries to open locked doors and talk to people at various daycares he claims are frauds.
Did you come during their normal operating hours when you came to visit?
I came at 11 a.m., I believe, and I also came the following day later in the day. The point of it is not whether or not I came at the right time of their operation hours. The point is that blacked out doors, they can't give you any information. You call that number, no one answers. I wasn't trying to go inside, and there should be a way for somebody to actually be able to call that number and somebody be able to answer. These aren't real businesses.
But surely you don't think a daycare should just be unlocked. You shouldn't be able to just walk into a
There
daycare.
should be a reception.
No, every daycare is locked.
Their doors are locked.
And so
While CNN is really pushing back on him, giving him some critical analysis here.
okay, you bring up a fair point. Then why can't they actually give me information how to enroll a child?
Federal law enforcement has been investigating fraud in Minnesota for several years. Both Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director
From my experience of dropping a child off at the daycare, people are not just sitting at the door is always locked. So they are making a good point. It does need some critical thinking.
Patel said on social media they've indicted dozens of defendants. DHS has posted multiple videos of agents they say are conducting a massive fraud investigation.
Do you think that federal law enforcement hasn't done enough? I mean, they would say, look, these fraud cases have been going on, but they've already done like 80 indictments. The cases have been going on, for years.
And why did I show up one day in Minnesota and go to all these daycares, no children, they're receiving millions of dollars. We uncovered nearly $110 million in fraud in one day.
How do you know that all the allegations that you're making are true?
How do I know that they're true? Well, we showed you guys what was happening, and then you guys can go ahead and make your own analysis.
We're coming so we can make our own analysis. Are you 100% sure you're true?
Yeah, I am 100% sure I'm true.
CNN is looking into Shirley's claim.
It gets a little bit uncomfortable to answer those hard questions, right? When people are pushing back on you.
Claims.
Hi, Hi, my name's Whitney Wild. I'm a correspondent for CNN.
We reached out to several of the daycares featured in the now viral video.
Ted says that Trump is a fraudster, con man. Okay, Greg says they were brought to Minnesota for voting rights. It's well planned. Thank you, guys.
Only one daycare facility answered and said they are a legitimate business.
Have you seen the videos, purporting that some of these daycares don't have kids inside?
Minnesota Republicans say despite the new focus from...
Okay, guys, Patty says, who would allow 74 kids in a center and there was an empty and little ones building that no one knew who ran the center? Nick, okay, report. Thank you.
The Trump administration, they have been sounding the alarm on fraud for years.
We have talked about fraud. We have gotten stories. We've tried to push this forward every way that we can.
At the daycare where Shirley showed back up, a stream of children walk inside.
Yes, Patty, I picked up. They did label him MAGA. That was a point of interest.
You're saying that this is a fraudulent daycare. There's kids being dropped off right now.
Yes, the Commissioner of Children literally said a week ago this place was closed.
Did you know
They're
that?
showing face right now.
A viral video, disputed claims, and their full fallout remains to be seen.
Dozens of fraud cases that DOJ is touting began during the Biden administration. Back in 2022, the U.S. Attorney's Office for Minnesota announced 47 indictments for this massive fraud scheme. Since then, they've indicted more than 30 more people.
Oh, and by the way, thanks, Stella. I just caught that it's New Year's Eve, and we want to ask that everybody have a great evening. Enjoy your... with whatever way you decide to bring in the new year, just bring it in right. Thank you.
And in total, they have secured at least 56 convictions. Whitney Wild, CNN, Minneapolis.
The group chat is back to talk about all of this right now. And Sarah, I want to go to you first. What do we know based on evidence about the alleged fraud in Minnesota and how legitimate and widespread it may be?
Well, I think a lot of people were very apt to believe
Okay, True Blue says he's lying. Could you explain for us? Thank you.
Shirley's videos because we had indictments in 2022 when reporting first came out about this issue. It was David Fahrenthold, then at the Washington Post, who started to unravel all of these claims. The reason why I think Shirley's post has gone viral amongst some of the conservative community is because Minnesota is a politically convenient target, not just for the president, but for the party. Obviously, the governor there, Tim Walz, was the running mate to Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Ilhan Omar is...
Carpe Diem says some stuff in the video already been debunked. We're going to show you that in the next video too.
Long been a foe of the president's, and you noted up top that the ICE immigration raids on Somalis has been a priority for the president. So all of this collectively has made this story something that people want to gravitate to. And in addition to that, previous reporting that uncovered widespread fraud in Minnesota from years ago also makes people more apt to believe this, where I think a lot of folks in the media, including you mentioned CNN, which is looking to verify this video.
Okay, Anthrax says you got to love that people will sit here and call him a liar instead of actually looking into it. Okay, thank you.
Are showing pause and trepidation around Shirley's reporting is just that making sure that it's actually verified, that it's showing fraud in a similar way that we all evaluated the initial reporting that came out in 2022.
And Antoine, what does it say about the media landscape at this point when a YouTuber with an anti-immigrant past can post a video with scant evidence, we can say, that launches a federal surge into a state?
I think there are different types of media, and I think Sarah's right. Truth be told, there's been local reporting.
Okay, so now we're going to take a look and see just who could be behind this whole situation. Is it the Somalians? We're going to look into it. Let's check it out.
A lot of messages about all of this alleged fraud that's happening in Minnesota because it's my home state. The first message I got was from a friend of mine asking me if I'd seen that video, that wackadoodle.
Okay, so this is her home state. Let's see what she has to say about it.
Nick Shirley did, going to that quick learning center or whatever it's called. And I'm not saying there's not fraud going on in Minnesota. I'm just saying that some of it seems to be from Nick Shirley. So he goes to this learning center. It's a daycare that has...
Okay, so she's calling Nick Shirley out, and she's going to show you how he has faulty reasoning, perhaps.
Taken millions of dollars. He's knocking, nobody's coming to the door. But it would seem that he's actually at the back door. So here he is at the front door. It's a restaurant called Abdi's Kitchen. That learning center shut down due to multiple violations, none of which I don't believe had to do with fraud. But he doesn't tell his followers that it's actually...
Okay, so he's gone to the back door. Okay, in one instance. The other instance, the restaurant is shut down due to violations. That's why no one's there.
A restaurant. So I got a bunch of messages about that. And then I got this comment on Instagram, which is a bad faith question. This guy's MAGA. And there has been a huge MAGA push to think about Somali people as fraudsters. Usually what they're referencing is the Feeding Our Future case. And yes, a lot of Somali people were implicated in that case. But what they conveniently leave out is this woman.
So in a way, they're trying to say that Nick Shirley was trying to feed the wolves, feed the sharks, by giving them some slight information that's mixed with dishonesty just to get the MAGA base riled up. And they're trying to say that this whole situation could be used to stir up hate and bad feelings against your neighbor. But again, there is fraud there, right? We have to look at both sides.
Amy Bach. In 2016, she founded the nonprofit Feeding Our Future. And in 2020 is when the fraud began. This was at the beginning of the pandemic. This was during DJT's first term. He completely mishandled the pandemic to the point that he loosened oversight on these kinds of programs, allowing claims to get through unverified. And Feeding Our Future claimed that they were giving thousands of meals to children, and they never did. They pocketed that money to the tune of $240 million. In 2022, during Biden's term, Biden's FBI...
So they pocketed $240 million, right? Like, how in the world were they able to get away with such a large amount, right?
I raided the organization, and the organization shut down. There were 78 suspects, Amy Bach, and all of her employees. In March of 2025, 40 of those people, including Amy Bach, were either...
Okay, so basically she's saying that a lot of the Somalians were actually employees for this individual allegedly by the name of Amy Bach. So we're going to get to it.
Found guilty or pled guilty. Merrick Garland called it the largest pandemic relief fraud scheme that there ever was. And Biden's administration...
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe to the channel. We do this every day at noon. We also have different shows at 8 p.m. at night. Thank you.
Administration shut it down. So most of the 78 people who were indicted and
that's Eastern Standard Time. Thanks.
And the 40 people who were found or pled guilty were Somali, but they were also Bach's employees. She was described as an authoritarian who silenced dissent within her ranks, discouraged scrutiny from state regulators, and cut off people who refused to comply with fudging the numbers. She is the person who created all of this. And now this has become a huge right-wing talking point because of racism and xenophobia. But no one ever mentions her, the person who created it.
Okay, so did you see that? That's the lady that created this operation, according to what she's trying to put out.
There's a ton more to the story, but I know that this guy asked me to cover this, to prove that Somali people are bad, because that's what this admin wants you to think. The reality is every community has bad actors. That is not an indication of a community as a whole. Unless maybe we're talking about some white women like Amy Bach, who actually was only caught because of Somali whistleblowers.
So again, she's saying that a lot of these 89 individuals that were arrested were working for this lady that she just showed the picture, Amy Bach, I believe.
They were the ones who dissented, the ones that Bach iced out. Anyway, too long didn't read. There are bad actors everywhere, but in this case, it was a white woman.
Okay, so what do you guys think about that? Does that give you a new twist here to understanding what's happening? Or you think the core of this whole situation goes back to the Somalians who were bad actors? We're going to switch up now and talk about something a little bit different. A lot of people, especially in the audience, in the comment section, often see people speaking in regards to Venezuela. Some say, oh, yeah, it's definitely drugs being smuggled. Others are saying in some cases they don't fully believe that. Well, there are some individuals saying that the United States is becoming like Russia because of the drastic measures, especially with the United States taking action on the land side of Venezuela. Let's get to it.
And joining us now, MS Now senior national security reporter David Rode, president emeritus of the Council on Foreign Relations, Richard Haass. He's also the author of the weekly Substack newsletter Home and Away, retired Lieutenant General
Casimir, we covered the Epstein files when I started at 12 noon. We basically highlighted how Epstein's brother had reported to the FBI that he felt like Donald Trump authorized the unaliving of his brother. And we showed you how that was breaking news from Yahoo and some other sources. So you could go back to check it out if you wish.
Mark Hertling, former commander of U.S. Army Europe, and Hofstra University professor of law James Sample, an expert in constitutional law. David, I'll begin with you.
Sharon, you're absolutely right. The doors to any child's daycare are always locked. And even nowadays, the school's doors are locked too. And people don't always just sit there waiting for someone to knock. They usually have buzzers and so forth. So thank you for your comment. Stella says, double tap the screen and press the thumbs up at the top of the screen to like the show. All right. Thank you very much. Faith says CNN is a joke and lamestream media is a liar. No areas for kids to play outside. Great point. Usually you do see a place for children to play.
To help lay the groundwork here, what exactly do we know at this time about this CIA strike that took place last week?
So the CIA is declining to comment, as are members of Congress. This kind of...
Before we get to that, True Blue says, and the migrants are eating the cats. All of this was debunked. Okay, so we do have critical thinkers in the audience.
Strike, the gang of 8, this would be the members of Congress from both parties who serve on the intelligence committees and other senior congressional officials should know about these kind of strikes. The sense that they're not commenting suggests that they did occur. And since it would be classified and they can't comment on them, it was a doc that, as you've talked about, was apparently used by a cartel or drug.
Put a 1 in the chat if you support the action that's taking place in Venezuela without a shadow of a doubt, no questions. Or put a 2 in the chat if you find it very questionable, the fact that we don't really know what's happening and there have been land strikes. A 1 or 2. Thank you.
Traffickers to transit drugs out of Venezuela. But this is a dramatic escalation, A, because it's attack on Venezuela itself. B, it's a shift back to this idea of somehow pressuring the flow of drugs as a way to get at Maduro. And as you mentioned, the main thrust last week and what seemed to be a more effective tactic was trying to shut off the flow of oil from Venezuela. That's what really threatens the Maduro regime. And then our colleague, David Noriega, an MS Now reporter, he's heard from people who...
So we've definitely heard 2 different stories going on. One is about the drugs and the other one in regards to the oil. AO says, regardless, even if the fraud or not, people who lean left don't want to admit that there could be fraud. They'd rather point the finger at Trump. In 20 years, they'll still blame Trump for everything. Thank you very much for that.
Support aggressive action against Maduro, that they're frustrated. They want the administration to be more aggressive in its use of force or more consistent in its tactics, and that this kind of back and forth and shifting in tactics and explanations may be emboldening Maduro.
You know, James, there are more than a few premises this administration has asked us to accept without sharing with us hard public evidence. But even if you're accepting or arguing that these people are terrorists or they are enemy combatants, is it legal to strike a dock in a sovereign nation?
The rhetoric and the labels help a lot in the court of public opinion. They may help ultimately in domestic courts as well. But on an international law level,
it seemed like in the audience we're mixed right down the middle. The watchers feel half and half about the strikes that are happening with Venezuela. But even though Jeff says, hell no, we won't go. Okay, Carpe Diem says evidence, verified evidence. Quinn says get down or lay down. Deborah says our right to know. That's right. Everybody wants to know. Patty says if you were vaccinated, then homeschooling may get funds for computers. Learning centers are more applicable, so work than daycaring your kids. And speaking of how you phrase that, the fact that they misspelled the learning on the building for the daycare, a lot of people pointed that out as a major issue on the level of the business owner and also for the government for allowing that to take place.
Let's be clear, there are two options. This is either illegal under international humanitarian law, which the United States subscribes to, or it's illegal under the law of armed conflict. One of those two scenarios applies.
Okay, Sassy Mo says if Trump is against drugs, we're going to try to use YouTube-friendly words. Why did he pardon the cocaine drug kingpin, the man who pushed tons of cocaine into the U.S.? All right.
The United States is arguing in a secret OLC memo that no one has seen outside the administration that this is an armed conflict with Venezuela. Now, the administration certainly has the power to make that reality true. They can make that manifest, right, by creating an armed conflict. But if this is an international armed conflict and therefore subject to the law of armed conflict, these individual actions, for example, the boat strikes on individuals who at most, even under the allegations and even under the labels, are guilty of criminal activity. That is activity that is the subject of law enforcement, not murder.
Richard, look, the justification for these strikes, the story around these strikes just keeps shifting. First, of course, we're told this is...
You know, every day we pretty much cover these strikes, and every other day there's a boat being taken out by explosives or what have you. And now these targets have come to the land. So we definitely will continue to cover it, but it just makes you think like what's really happening when we look at Israel versus Gaza. We see Russia versus Ukraine, and then the United States has a big struggle going on with Iran right now. It just makes you wonder, like, what does the future hold for a lot of mankind?
All about the drug war. Then Susie Wiles, of course, close to Trump, leading operations in the White House. You know, she makes comments in that explosive Vanity Fair profile saying that this is about trying to make Maduro cry uncle. And then we start to hear people on the right, figures around President Trump and Trump himself, signal that, well, actually, this might be about oil and resources. Can you help me decode what's going on here?
The fourth option, which is all of the above. I think to some extent, in a very limited way, it's about drugs. It's much more about regime change.
Okay, Carpe Diem says it's a violation of nation sovereignty. We are no better than Russia. Wow. Do you guys feel the same way?
And gaining access to Venezuelan oil. And I think that a big part of this administration's foreign policy has been what? It has been,
Welcome back, Pretty Tings. Says, ever since January the 20th, 2025, there's been nothing but scandal and corruption. In fact, a lot of people feel like a lot of these scandals are just to take away from the Epstein files. Quinn says, globalization. All right. Thank you very much. And let's see. One Shot says, liberals are domestic terrorists. Okay. Roderick says, why drugs are still running rampant. Okay.
Focusing on the Western Hemisphere, check. It has been a commercial opportunity, check.
I'm seeing a lot of familiar names and faces for those of you who put up your picture. It makes me feel good that we have the continued support. Thank you for coming back, and I hope you guys enjoy your New Year's Eve.
It's also been about stopping immigration. Venezuela has lost over 8 million people over the last, 5 or 10 years. So it seems to me it's central to this administration's foreign policy. The real question is, what if small amounts of gradually increasing military force don't work? Gradualism, incrementalism allows the other side to adjust. So I'm not sure it's the wisest approach, but if a little bit of force doesn't work, well, then what? Do you back off or do you introduce a lot of force?
So lo and behold, they're trying to figure out what's happening, but ultimately it lies within the hand of Donald J. Trump. And it's also a matter of whether or not you trust the president. And now we're going to get to another story. I don't know if any of you guys follow Cardi B and her love life. Some people follow that type of stuff. But, well, right now there's a big story in regards to an individual that she's involved with. It appears perhaps she has a child by this man. He is a professional ball player. We're going to cover it.
Well, breaking right now on WBZ, New England Patriots star Stefon Diggs is facing serious criminal charges. We have just obtained paper.
These guys make all the money in the world but keep getting in serious trouble. It's like unbelievable, right? And they get all this time in prison. Candyman, shout out to you. Nice to have you here as well.
Paperwork from Dedham District Court indicating that the wide receiver is charged with felony strangulation or suffocation and misdemeanor assault and battery. This is stemming from an incident back on December 2nd. Diggs is scheduled to be arraigned on the charges in Dedham on January 23rd. That is just 2 days.
Now, I've been seeing in the reports that this involves the chef, right? So what in the world is going on? This is all alleged, but it reminded me of when I covered, or I went to Sean Diddy Combs' case. There was an allegation that was covered in court of him also attacking the chef, and it was just such a big debacle. A lot of the individuals who took the stand, made reference to it as well. So what's going on with celebrities and chefs? We want to know.
Before the AFC Championship game, the wide receivers' attorneys were in court this morning for a hearing, and we are working to learn more about the incident that led to these charges. We did reach out to the Patriots.
It's great to have you, Roderick. Thank you.
For a statement. We have that for you here. It says the New England Patriots are aware of the accusations that have been made regarding Stefon Diggs. Stefon has informed the organization that he categorically denies the allegations. We support Stefon. We will continue to gather information and will cooperate.
So keep in mind that he's innocent until proven guilty. This could just be a money grab, but we do not know at this time.
Fully with the appropriate authorities and the NFL as necessary, out of respect for all of the parties involved. And given that this is an ongoing legal matter, we will have no further comment at this time.
Sassy Mo makes a great point, says money doesn't buy class. That's a great point.
We want to bring in Dan Roach now to talk about this with us and the impact, Roachy, that this could have for the team, for the playoffs. We've been on such a roll. How does Coach Vrabel make sure that this doesn't become a distraction for them?
Well, Brianna, I think it's very early in the fact-finding part of this as far as just what happened, how it happened, when it happened, who was involved, and everything else, which we haven't seen or heard yet. So I think that's the first part of it. And then the second part to me is that he categorically denies it when it comes to what happened. So we're going to have to find out the story. Beyond that, I can tell you that as a veteran, a wide receiver, a number one wide receiver coming in, there were questions about Steph Diggs and, how would he behave? How would he handle it? A lot of the number one wide receivers could be divas, if you call it, at times. And he has been nothing but a role model, a perfect citizen in that clubhouse or locker room for this New England Patriots team so much.
So he said these guys can be divas at times. What about that? Okay. Right, Abon, I believe footballers, you can take the man out of the streets, but you can't take the street out of the man. Thank you for your comment. Stella is still saying, make sure you double tap the screen, like, share, and subscribe. Okay, thank you. Sassy Mo says the truth needs no defending. Exactly.
So that he's emerged as a leader. The players look up to him. I think the coaching staff certainly respects him. And everything that he's done in a Patriots uniform has been good for the team. In fact, just the other day, post-game after their win over the Jets down in New Jersey, he was speaking in the locker room talking about being 30 yards away from being a 1,000-yard wide receiver, I think for the 7th time in his career. And he had knee surgery last year and came back, and I think it meant a lot to him. He was almost, to me, kind of emotional, almost in tears, saying he just wants to win, that these milestones don't mean as much to him anymore in his career. At this point of his career, he just wants to win, loves this team, and wants to be a part of them trying to win a Super Bowl. So, like I said, it's again, nothing surprises me, in sports anymore. But I think for everything that we've seen and have been with the guy from day one here in that Patriots locker room, he's been nothing but a role model citizen. So we shall see how it unfolds. But from my perspective, he's been everything you want as a teammate, as a leader.
I was having a discussion with someone the other day. Usually when these claims come forward, people will hear those and they'll just leave with that probably for the rest of their lives because they don't go back to research whether you were truly guilty or not. So whenever you have these incidents, it definitely will mar your reputation. We think of Jay-Z and other individuals who have been hit with various claims. Also, Tyler Perry has been hit with various claims. but we do not know the results, especially in regards to Tyler Perry.
As a New England Patriot so far.
Yeah, Rochi, certainly a lot of positive things ahead of him. He's a dad, has a new baby with Cardi B. But again, here, the breaking news, he is going to be arraigned 2 days before the AFC Championship. So we will see what happens. We will stay on top of it. Rochi, thank you for your insight, as always, here.
And of course, the charges themselves may seem self-explanatory to lay people, but there's always a lot to it. We want to enter in WBZ legal analyst Jennifer Roman here to help us make sense of all of this. Jennifer, first things first, we have a felony charge and a misdemeanor charge.
Okay, AI Smart City says, read the contract. All right. Bill Keefe says, presumed innocent. Exactly.
Can you explain each one or both?
Sure. So the felony charge would carry with it a much more serious sentence than the misdemeanor charge, and it would include the potential for imprisonment in the state prison versus just the regular jail. So the nature of the charges make them very different. We don't know if it's a strangulation.
Imagine what it's like going from the big league with all the big millions to a jail cell, prison cell.
Or suffocation at this point. We don't really know what the facts are supporting these allegations, but that is definitely the more serious charge of the two. The assault.
Okay, Jeanette says, I'm reserving my comments until I get the facts. I stopped watching the NFL when they started having satanic halftime shows. All right.
In battery would carry a sentence up to 2.5 years in the House of Correction as a misdemeanor if convicted. Whether or not somebody gets if convicted, whether or not some.
We have critical thinkers here. Bill Keefe says, if it was so violent, why did it take 2 full weeks to report? Okay, so we get some pushback.
That he actually receives, the type of sentence they receive depends on the nature of the crime, whether or not they accept responsibility in any way, show remorse, but also whether or not there is a prior criminal history here that would support a harsher sentence. So as this all sort of still is unfolding, we really don't know a whole lot. We'll know more at the arraignment later in January. That should provide some more details about what the allegations are and would shed some light on what.
So we'll definitely keep you up to date when it comes to this story and many others as we cover these stories every day at noon, EST. Monday through Friday, we have many different shows. Last night, we had a good show with Big Homie CC, a security person that has protected many of the celebrities. He broke down some stories about the likes of Sean Diddy Combs and other individuals that he's been around. You could go back and check out that show from last night. Tonight at 8 p.m., we have Candace Kelly coming on. She's a law professor. We're going to be talking about Luigi Mangione. I spent 3 weeks out in the cold commuting to the courthouse in New York City in regards to his hearing. And so now we have a second hearing. The first hearing was involving the state charges for the unalivement of Brian Thompson here in New York. But the next case is federal. It starts January the 9th. So we have a little under 2 weeks before I'll be back in court. And I'll definitely be sharing footage, helping you guys get understanding of who's attending and also what happens in the courtroom. But tonight, Candace Kelly and I will be discussing the case as well as some of the other hot topics, but we're going to consider it from a legal perspective. So feel free, if you have any questions, to put them in the comment section. You could also email them, or whichever is easier for you. But tonight we shall do that. We want to thank you guys for all of the great participation. But tonight is New Year's Eve, so I just thought about that. But the show should be on for tonight at 8 p.m. But thank you. If you're going to see the ball drop in New York City, I would say be very careful, be very safe, and make sure, like everyone else, that you wear your Depends, because that's what people do. You can't really go to the bathroom. So the people that attend the ball drop, most of them wear Depends because they have to stand in one spot for, let's say some people are already standing there in Times Square. And as the day goes on, you can't even move around nonetheless, these people in New York, they never allow you to use the bathroom. So imagine you have 100,000, 200,000, a million people coming through in very limited bathrooms. People have to get very creative. Thank you for tuning in today. We look forward to seeing a lot of you guys back tonight at 8 p.m. I know it's a holiday, but whatever you decide to do, make sure you're safe. Just like Deborah said, we do not want to become a casualty. And a lot of times it's not us that it's like when you're driving. A lot of times it's not your driving failures. You always have to look out for the other person, and therein lies the problem. So thank you very much. I want to give a special thank you for all the moderators who have been working really hard over this year. Look out for a great blessing from me. I really do appreciate you guys. Also, we appreciate everybody who supports the channel and all of the comments, likes. It all goes far. And we thank you, Sassy Mo. Sassy Mo says, Happy New Year to everyone in the chat. Okay, Patty Cake says, wear shoe covers too. Yes, indeed. With thick layers because it's going to be freezing cold. It's already freezing cold. We had a big snowstorm up here in New York this week, so it's tough out here. Underrated says, you too, Sassy. Happy New Year. God bless you. Okay. We have a lot of people getting along well. And the beautiful thing about this channel is that we have a lot of people who are Republicans. We have a lot who are Democrats with different point of views. But it's nice that we could come together and have a meeting of the minds. As you know, I don't have a spin on it. So I just report it as it is. And keep in mind for the opening story for this particular live, we talked about Jeffrey Epstein's brother and how he had reported to the FBI that he felt like Donald Trump was the individual that authorized the unalivement of his brother. That news story came through Yahoo by means of Daily Beast. So we're just reporting what's out there. So it's something to think about. A lot of people feel that way in regards to the matter, but we just have to see if we ever will get to the bottom of the Epstein files to learn more and to really figure out what really happened. A lot of people want to know. In fact, a lot of people from MAGA follow this channel, but even still, they want to know what happened to the Epstein situation and the Epstein files, right? Donald Trump ran on the Epstein files and draining the swamp and revealing these matters. So people want to know, just like the Inquirer. Thank you, Stella. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you guys for all you do. And let's see here. Toe Knuckle says, you guys are nuts. I want some of what y'all are smoking, but it's entertaining, certainly better than the Republican gibberish. All right. We're going to leave on that note. Well, we have a positive note. Look at here. Deborah says, stay warm, Mel. Cheers. Okay. Cheers to you too. And you guys be well. And we'll see you back tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be blessed. Thank you.
Different voices, but the same song. Living a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Peaceful flight, the colors of harmony, painting